Welcome. This is the MFA's Educator Workshop. We are focusing on Boston art and a Boston artist with the Mural Project, and Rob Gibbs has joined us for the evening. My name is Makeeba McCreary, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Chief of Learning and Community Engagement here at the museum, and it's been my pleasure to have a chance to work with Rob Gibbs and Rob Stull for the past, what's turned into over 12 months, maybe we're probably going on 18 at this point, and we're gonna keep going. As artists in residence here at the Museum of Fine Arts Boston, take note that these are the first artists in residence from Boston, and first Black men also who are born and bred just less than a mile, less than blocks away from this museum. So we're really honored to be making history. We're gonna start with a little bit of housekeeping. If I can control this PowerPoint. There we go. This is being recorded, so you should know that it'll be uploaded to YouTube and to the MFA's website. Feel free to go off camera if you do not want to be a part of the recording. I'd also ask everybody to please mute themselves. I know we've all gotten used to this Zoom etiquette, but it would be helpful just in case you have background noise. There's going to be a transcript, and closed captions for this are available through Rev for Zoom live captions. If you have any questions about how to turn that on, feel free to put that in the chat, and Sophia or somebody else from our team will help you out. You can share any questions you have or comments in the chat. I would encourage you to do that as we go through this conversation. Don't wait till the end, and I'll grab your questions as we go, and happy to get them in there before we arrive at the final part of this presentation. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge that the Museum of Fine Arts Boston, founded in 1870, stands on the historic homelands of the Massachusetts people, a site which has long served as a place of meeting and exchange among different nations. As a museum, we acknowledge the long history of the land that we occupy today and seek ways to make Indigenous natives more prominent in our galleries and programming. Let's get started.
It's like what do you do? The whole world is your canvas. Bringing that art to life. Cause you got one, man. Breathe life. That's a movie on canvas. Look close, you can find all the answers. Now welcome to the thoughts of Problak. Now think Problak, you gotta grasp that. Dreams of a king came early. Thanks to Uncle Bob and Auntie Shirley. Now stop, all heads to the sky. And that's in memory of Cousin Ty. You can't understand the mind of a genius. It's like sitting on Mars watching Venus. See, these ain't mirrors, these are lessons. And this ain't just art, these are blessings. No, this ain't just paint on the wall. This what bridges the gap between us all. Ain't no ceiling, cuz keep growing. You Bobby Superman, you gotta keep going. See, all these life experiences is what bring out that art. It's only right. Cuz with the drawing, I went to rapping, put it all together. That whole feeling vibe, man, we brought it all together. Yes, sir. God gave us the knowledge, the key to life. God gave us the discipline to get it right. The hood made us stronger in every way. A kid from the project in the museum, hit your shows and ain't nothing we can't do, fam. Shine like the sun, cause it's only right. If you what a real role model looks like. If you ain't just doing it, you set the bar. The best to ever do it, and that's by far. Interview with Pebbles, ride up in Forbes. Check the Globe, the Herald, and many more. And you ain't close to done, there's so much left. We just sitting in the kitchen waiting for the chef. I'm on this rock solid, we'll never budge. This is from the heart. Play, cuz.
My role involved in it is just to listen and to show people better than I can tell them that I'm actually support for who has the ideas of the you know, the goal and want to say something. There's so many people that reach out, especially young people that are like, yo, I know you're busy, but do you have the time?
All right, Rob. So I remember when you first heard that song, it was before the video was made. And what most people, I don't know if everybody knows, so maybe we should just level set. Rob, you've been a working artist, an active artist for going on 30 years now. You are the co-founder of Artists for Humanity, and you also are an educator outside of Artists for Humanity. And you work large scale, but you also work on canvas as well. And I think a lot of folks don't always realize that about you. And I'm gonna ask you what this slide means to you, because there were so many moments. This was supposed to be a 2-week project, right? And it turned into a 2-month project, but we were out there together all the time. We were out there, and you were not leaving until you got it exactly right. Tell me what it was like to have this little girl and her grandfather show up.
Oh man, I'll never forget the day that he showed up with his granddaughter, and I know it. When I first met him, he was walking his dog, and he found the need to want to go back and get his granddaughter because to see something done at this scale or magnitude, he'd never seen anything like that. And come to find out, he went to Madison when it first moved over there in like the 70s or 80s, he said. So he was giving me a little bit of history. And he found the need to want to connect with me in some way, shape, or form. But like the power in the image that you could see present, and I'm just wilding that this was captured. She seen what she thought would be herself on the wall, and her reaction said everything, man. Like I can remember the way that it felt when I first seen him. What was said was just, we were sitting to the side because there was a point in the day where it was just too bright to see like the you know what activity I was putting on the wall. Like the sun played a very, very huge part in the visibility of the wall. So when we was taking that like that couple of hour lunch break, that's when he had asked if the artist was around when he had brought his granddaughter back. And he came over to the area where we were sitting at because we was all practicing our social distancing, and was just telling me how powerful this is, that he'd never seen anything like this in the neighborhood. And it wasn't until I was finished with the mural that I probably had like several conversations with him. And I've missed his sermon. He had the church he attended, he had wrote a whole synopsis based on what he was experiencing at this mural and what it did for his granddaughter. So I felt like if there was an ability to paint something and have like an instant testimonial, that was something that came from a higher power, that it was through his interaction with his granddaughter, and they would come through frequently throughout the whole process. So yeah, what took ideally 2 weeks, what we had in the planning, or like the month, it turned into 2 months.
For good reason.
and
I'm glad it's
good reason.
And she wasn't the only little girl or family or young person who came to visit you. And your cousin, in that song and that tribute to you, he actually says it. He says how you're always there. You're always willing to talk to whoever's coming along, particularly young people. I was not out there one day over those 60 days that there was not at least between 1 and 15, 15, 16, 17-year-olds that were just sitting watching you work. What was that like? Why is that important? And how do you manage to be so present when you're taking on something that is so massive like this?
That's a good question, Makeeba. The ability to stay present or in real time is something that I take into accountability because it adds on to what I'm creating. It's like if you ever watch your moms or your dad cook and you want to get like the precise measurement of how to make something, you don't see them using measuring cups and spoons and things of that nature. They just know what it's supposed to look like, how it's supposed to feel. So it's the same when I'm painting these walls and people are coming up to talk. They actually add to the narrative. And there was one real powerful conversation that I had with the gym teacher. And it's so funny that the photo on the far left where we were doing like the first presentation
Yeah.
to that piece of the wall getting done, that people didn't know that there was an entire story that was about to unlock to the left of it. And the gym teacher asked me, he was like, man, so what do you like the most about doing things of this size and magnitude? He was like, is it the beginning or is it the end when you're done? And I was like, I'm not sure. I think it's more about the journey, you know, because in my head and in my mind, I know what I already wanted to create. I have the game plan. Of course, you know, with teaming up with you and everybody from the MFA and the kids at Madison, I had to have a plan in order to know what direction to go into. But the journey is what stood out and it hangs with me the most because there was some on the spot alterations we had to make. And just given at the size and the magnitude of the wall, we couldn't shortchange it. You know what I mean? And for the time that it took to do it, I think it was more or less the time the wall deserved. Just so that when anybody goes there, they can totally take in any aspect, any part of the wall, and see probably what I was going through at the time. And that probably was like the most significant 2 months of my 30 years in painting, you know?
I don't want to take for granted that everybody understands this story or understands the story that you would like to tell, because there are so many things embedded here. So I wonder if you could just take folks through, and everyone should know that this little girl was really supposed to be about 1/3 of that size, maybe half of that size. So when Rob talks about the fact that some things had to change on the spot, that was probably one of the first things that changed, was the scale of this entire project. But tell us about the keyhole.
The keyhole was based off of a lyric that I was inspired by listening to a group called A Tribe Called Quest, and it's in a piece called Check the Rhyme. And Q-Tip had mentioned that if knowledge is the key, wouldn't show me the lock. And I wanted to base a visual narrative off of that piece that he had rhymed, you know. So it's like beats, rhymes, and life is totally what this is all about. And I know that I had a couple of layouts that were behind the girl that could have worked in reference to like a halo or some type of background. But I was like, what would be crazy to carve a keyhole into the side of a school, that inside of that keyhole there's a mystery of imagination that's behind her, and she's submerging from this keyhole. So if there was anything that I could visually represent that would talk in reference to if knowledge is the key, then show me the lock, this was it, you know. And then how is she floating out of this lock? Well, she's breathing life into this bubble wand, in which if you put if you use the app called Artivive and you hold your device in front of it, she's actually blowing a bubble that submerges her entire body to help her elevate out of this keyhole. Another on the spot quirk is that you can see, let's call it a hero. And so the hero that you see on the piece is that you see a drop shadow that's under her, that's permanent, you know, to help her feel elevated, to play with the architecture a bit. I had to literally go into Mission Hill projects to see how large I needed to make her. And I wanted to make her that larger so that the students at Mass Art who were staying in the treehouse could see it. And then more important, that depending on what side of a children's hospital there's a kid or a resident staying at, they can look out the window, look distant, and can see this mural, and it'll speak to them in a large way. So the inspiration, I had to think outside of the box in so many ways. And for the school to be my alma mater, I felt like this was always a place that I can use as a platform to say things, to speak to young people and everybody that lives in the neighborhood, just to let them know excellence comes from the school. So
All right. And
That's one of 1,000
that's
stories.
one of 1,000 stories. And so I'm not going to make you tell all of them. And I'm glad you guys got Art Vive answered for you there in the chat. If anyone's looking for it, somebody, Hillary, thanks, you put it into the chat for folks to grab. Let's just talk, let's spend a couple more minutes on this piece of work, and let's talk about the artists that are being paid homage to, let's put it that way, on this wall, and the why, like the what and the why.
The what and the why. Okay, so starting out from a backpack that the little girl was carrying, you can see that it dropped and it opened. And from it opening, you can see the band, the Tribe Called Quest, the rap group, has the album, which the lyric that I've referenced came from that particular album. It's Midnight Marauders, not Midnight Marauders, I'm sorry, the Low End Theory. Got my albums mixed up. And so inside of the book bag, there's little nuances that lead to the other murals that are like little, hints. It's like a breadcrumb trail. And so she's in some way, shape, or form an aspiring artist, and the artists that influence her are all in her backpack. These are replicas of pieces from people that inspired her, which inspired, people that inspired me as well. And it's a combination of artists who were locally from here and individuals that I had to learn about throughout my passage and being an artist. So you have the likes of Michaelina Thomas, who had her version of Michelle Obama that you see. You see a logo from a cohort of mine by the name of Percy Fortini Wright. You have the book that's currently being, sold at the gift shop, right? For the
exhibition.
Future Writing for the exhibition by Liz Monsell. You have pieces from Paul Goodnight, Timmy Allen, Carol Walker, Rob Stull, another local brother by the name of Rufus Falk Sr. He has his piece of the Orange Line on the top. Another colleague of mine, Stephen Hamilton. You have the likes of Dean 5, Quest, and Big Ones with the Roxbury Love in the corner. Another piece of Paul Goodnight's Tony Concept. Wow, well, Miss Robin Chandler Smith.
The march came like sort of in the moment, right? Because that wasn't planned.
It wasn't planned at all. In the unfortunate passing of John Lewis. I don't know if people didn't understand that he was a contributor to a graphic novel. And the graphic novel was speaking in reference to what's happening in the times. So that was one of those things where one of the pages flying out of a book easily became this graphic novel titled March, which was a 3-part series combined into one graphic novel that's flying out. You also have Bob Freeman, Larry Pierce, and an ASL book that's floating as well, which makes reference to the other murals. So you can only imagine how heavy this little girl's bag was, but I just wanted that amount of weight to be seen and felt when, cascading it across the rest of the wall.
One of the things that we talked about when we were sort of just at the very beginning of this was the idea that this needed to pay tribute to artists that are here in Boston that are have been working, have been unsung in some ways. I mean, certainly Bob Freeman and Paul Goodnight and Micheline Thomas, but there's many, many others, who are prolific artists, incredible. And I think we talked about this being an important moment for us to acknowledge that all of that was wrapped around her, keeping her safe, sort of an ancestry of what came before. How can you share a little bit both about your time at Madison Park and what it meant for you to leave this there? And then I'll ask you another question after that.
All right. What it meant for me to leave this at Madison Park, I think what's been happening is that we've been taking care of the site. When the school gave us access to like painting in the courtyards and other walls that were around, to have the trust and the alignment of the school on our side to be able to give back in some way, shape, or form, it's like a place of it was the need to want to bring the attraction there so that it can change kind of the narrative that goes on about the school since I've been going in. I wanted people to understand, and I wanted to bring some level of like school spirit into the spot, to be like, you know, for the kids that go there, they'd be like, yeah, we got one, or we have a site that is actually on, you know, it's out of the museum, but it's a gallery in its own right. And I've had a lot of teens that attend Madison or live in the area or practice in this, that are inspired and actually know our murals, to understand like the messaging that's behind it. And I feel like the larger any of us had the ability to go, it was important for me to set the bar, and to create a standard, to welcome anybody who wants to add on to this lovely gallery that we created when we started out small and got large, and prove a point that if you gave us, or any of us, the ability and the time and the resources, this is what we would do with it. Not just here, but anywhere around the world. So imagine I have a platform to put out a universal message in a place that helped me become the man that I am right now. You know, so it was a level of giving back. It was a level of acknowledgement and just inspiration to just about any of the teens that go to school there, to be like, hey man, whatever it is that you're doing in the school, especially like it's one of the only Votech schools in the city still, you know, or just period, to just kind of take that inspiration from what they're learning that's hands-on, and to add on to the experiential learning, to pursue the ability to try to, you know, tell any type of narrative or story, and just showing them better than I can ever tell them visually, and to have that pride where we're at.
So you got a chance to actually get visits from both mentors at Artists for Humanity, which are the sort of the teaching staff, still young, still being mentored by you, but mentoring the younger generation, and even some of the younger generation. I know a lot of them were working on projects in parallel, some of them for the first time. And we have educators on this panel right now, or this forum. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what you say to them to keep them inspired, but also what you think they need to hear and understand the most about what they have to offer, like what they're bringing, particularly with their art, but just also in general as young people here in the city.
Yeah, I definitely tell them if they have the ability and the skill set to execute something and know what it looks like finished, that it then becomes a responsibility. It's like, you have this gift, you have this tool, what do you do with it? You don't have to necessarily mimic what the next person is doing, but if you felt the need to express yourself to be as good as what you probably create indoors or on canvas or things of that nature, like just think about the power that you would gain as creating a voice that could speak for more than just yourself. You could represent a whole body of people with just, you know, something that you may not look at as difficult to do, but because that thing that you create can translate and everybody understands the language behind it, the visual language, you can create things that are iconic, and show some level of reflection to not only what your skill and your ability is, but to like raise the next generation to have that ability. What I tell everybody all the time, like I said, is you're only as good as your last piece and the people you place yourself around. So constantly talking to them, but them also seeing me walk the talk. It's a very powerful connection, because they're like, man, here's this dude where he's showcasing his wisdom without being preachy about it. I'm just kind of like, there's been a time when techniques were discussed. There were long sessions of just people sitting right behind me on concrete, like they're sitting on uncomfortable concrete watching me paint. And it's hot. It was like an oven out there, and I was just sitting there like, yo, I kept water and everything around just to, you know, just to be like considerate, but like it was mind blowing, because in the middle of a pandemic, they're watching what we're able to produce and we're not doing anything that's like mirroring the ugly stuff that's happening in the world. It was like, yo, here's how you can balance everything that's going on right now. And this is just one of many ways to be active with the social media, everybody tagging themselves on it and just watching it come to life. I think that was it was a powerful exchange within itself. So if there was anything I could have told them, I was showing them in the same breath, and they were asking about like a lot of the artists that I chose to showcase coming out of the backpacks because they seen me make an attempt to replicate pieces that have a strong connection to the storytelling of the mural, you know, from
Right.
Paul Goodnight's lineage piece on down to the pyramids to the projects piece, which was something that I had the honor of recreating when I was probably their age. So I was sharing a bit of history, giving them kind of like a visual example of like strong work ethic by
Yeah.
being out there. Like the days weren't pretty at all. You know, you seen in the video, I shaved my hair. It was hot. And if anybody's ever seen this wall in person, you know the texture of the wall is something that I don't think any artist would want to. If you had a choice, you probably wouldn't choose this.
I think I heard you say this will never ever happen again. Once I finish this, I'm done. We have a couple of thoughts and questions here in the chat that I want to share with you. I do want to, however, thank you because I was one of your students. You cannot see my bubble. I chose not to take advantage of this moment to highlight my bubble, but I did make one. And I have to say, you might be one of the most patient teachers I have ever experienced. But hard, like you were hard. You weren't going to let me get away with just, you know, a subpar bubble. So I appreciate that. Amy is wondering, she says, what roadblocks have you seen or experienced to getting Black art, your art scene, Black art scene, if you consider your art Black art? And how do you think BPS Arts Department and teachers can help to dismantle those roadblocks? And I'll let you think about that. Oh, you got it? Because I was going to give you a minute, but you're good.
Nah, I was going to take a minute to think about it because there's, for each mural that we've all been participating in or creating, is if there's not a roadblock, then I don't think it comes out great. You know, it's almost like the needed ingredient,
Right.
because it's the battery that's in our back where it's like, okay, I got to prove these cats wrong. I got to make sure that it's happening. And I've had a lot of people honestly come up to me and not understand what it was that I was doing, because it's not typical. It's non-traditional. You know, they see a guy with a spray can, they see an outline up one day, and then they see the background color the other. I think it's just introducing the city to the process,
Right.
where like I've been traveling the world and it's normal to everybody else, but it's new to the city. So the challenge is just making everyone believers. To change the visual representation, where it's like, if I told you I did that mural and I was standing in front of it, would you believe me, without all the press, without anybody knowing who I am and things of that nature? You know, I get the, yo, you don't look like an artist. What does that mean? You know, and I want to say that it's just the idea of identifying more spaces for this work to be taken, not just serious, but for it to be permanent. You know,
Yeah.
we throw around real comfortable language where it's like, oh, could we put up this temporary piece? Or
Right.
if we're like a colorful band-aid to a developer's escape from wanting to reappoint the building, like, yo, give us the best and we will provide the best, because our ability and responsibility as artists who contribute in a community, I think we know better. So give us that benefit of the doubt. But like, if you give us lemons and we make lemonade, don't want to like do things to help preserve that, because
Right.
there's plenty of times we participated in things that weren't expected to come out the way that they are, and then they get taken away, and the community's upset. People are up in arms, you know, and we're not given the idea or the responsibility to make things that turn our city into like a tourist attraction,
Right.
or you know,
Or just
just
make it beautiful, right? I mean,
make it beautiful. Yeah, like to show that beauty is here. So I think the way that we can help is just if there's a way where more artists get into some of these schools, or just on the you know, on the properties, and just kind of do something that is as deep as a residency, so that we can deliver the right message, you know,
yeah.
and have a general understanding that this stuff doesn't happen overnight. It could be something that ideally take, depending on the size and scale, but I think it's more about the time that you're willing to give it to get the outcome and the delivery from it. And don't be scared to just be all right with not knowing. I feel like the challenges is always it's a necessary ingredient, but we don't want the challenges to be too much, because it holds up progress.
Dan, I know you have a question. I'm going to get to it in a minute, but I do want to just give a shout out to the inaugural Breathe Life piece that I hope all of you have seen. And Rob, how did this start? Is there a way to describe it? Is there a way to explain
it? With my artist family, street theory, we're always looking to do the next biggest thing. And the next big thing isn't just painting the sides of bodegas and asking property owners if they'll give us, like, you know, an opportunity or an ability, or changing a drug hangout into an art gallery. Now there's money going out in proposals that were being identified by, you know, our she's a serious, like, she's a go-getter, man. Liza Quiones had she put the fire under my butt and was like, listen, but there's a body of money that we can all go for as a crew. And I think if we do the sides of these buildings, like, you know, the stuff that you see in like New York or Dallas or LA, Wynwood, you know, I was like, you think Boston's ready for that? Absolutely. So we took a small budget and proved the point when it came to this. And I think the most difficult part was just trying to get the property owners that we could put these opportunities on to believe that we could deliver something of that scale and that magnitude, because the only thing that people ever seen was what was done in, like, you know, either other cities or the Roxbury Love at the time.
Right.
And I felt like if you love Roxbury Love, then there's more things like that that can happen. Just allow us to do it. And for the difficulty that we all went through, a little bit of a roadblock. This wall wasn't originally the wall that this painting was supposed to be on, believe it or not. I got permission from a building that was adjacent to it, in which, you know, again, there was the hold up between, well, what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? And, you know, time just got out of our hands.
Right.
I needed to go. And this was the original building that we proposed. Come to find out that the folks who were on the first floor that was running the church out of the building were looking for a muralist to paint on the side of it. So it was the universe connecting the dots. And you know, everything started aligning. The data equipment got dropped off there, on down to the weather playing out, because this was done in October, believe it or not. And 7 days, you know, started on Sunday. The following Sunday, I was walking away from this done. And what got this started, and, you know, thank you to all the residents that live in that building that were patient with me, man, painting it with their windows and having things of that nature. I think it was a challenge for me personally to take something that I've done small scale on a painting, and I wanted to convey a message just in the neighborhood, because that part of Blue Hill Ave has a strong transition after Quincy Street to be something that people will drive by real fast. It's not neighborhood friendly, you know.
Right.
So if there was any, and there was a lot of, and at that time in 2017, there was a lot of there were a lot of kids getting shot, and there was a lot of violence on the street that particular summer. So I was like, damn, if there's anything I could tell young people that are over here wilding out right now, I just want them to just, instead of going into this negative route, breathe life into a situation. So this was my ability to just kind of speak to what was going on at the time and give everybody something different to look at, especially for this part of the neighborhood that a lot of folks that did come up to it said they'd never seen anything like it.
I'm gonna share with you a couple questions that I'd like to hold until we get to the end, but I know that it'll give you a chance to think about it a little bit. And one is let's see, the depth. Everybody wants to know how proud they are of you and how inspired they are by your work. In particular, how seriously you took on acknowledging references like Paul Goodnight and Quest, and that you were even willing to sit and meet with teachers this afternoon, this evening. There's a question that you'll get to later probably, which is when you have a finished piece worked out in your mind before painting, do you also have an idea of the color schemes that you plan to work with? And I know we've talked about that, so I know that's a very important part of your process. And then there's another question Dan also asked, which is a follow-up question might be if there's an intended audience that Black artists are trying to reach. So is there an intended audience you're trying to reach? If that's so, do you think that community members being able to see this work by Black artists makes a difference? And is there an expectation that the art will come to mainstream or traditionally quote unquote white venues? So something to think about. Tell us why, just quickly, this was so important to you, because I know it's also was a really meaningful project.
Super meaningful project, super meaningful project. This was the ability for me to literally bring back home what I went around the world to learn how to do. Everybody knows I've grown up on the street parallel to Camden, going back and forth to the store, the corner store, Roses, or it's called Brothers now. I literally walk past this wall every day. People's Church is located directly across the street from it. So a lot of my friends that changed their lifestyles and young people that I mentored, they've got baptized at the church across the street. And I have a deep embedded connection with this neighborhood and area because this was my footpath. This is where I was going to and from. So when I was leaving home to go work at the YMCA or leaving home to go to college at Bunker Hill, anywhere where I was hitting Mass Ave train station, I was always walking by this particular lot. And I've always said to myself, when I get good, man, I wasn't even thinking about the whole entire wall. I was thinking about from where the fence is at across. Because, you know, as anything that a step ladder can get or a couple of milk crates, that's what my mind was at the time. Like, yo, that's what I can do and I can make it happen. And when this opportunity came, it was actually painted a year before I did anything to it by an artist from Detroit who showcased everyone in the South End in that area, and this was curated with Now and There. It was kind of like it was an ability for people to see what's possible on this wall, bringing something new to that area, knowing that all of us had grown up around there and seen what I was able to do. The unfortunate application of of the last mural where it was done in wheat paste, the weather, because you know we got bad winters up here. It played out real bad on the piece. It made it look real old, real fast. So Mother Nature playing a part freed up the wall to need something different on it. And I got approached with the opportunity, and I think it was all risk based because nobody's ever seen me do anything other than to breathe life on Blue Hill Live. And then it was like a 2-year gap in between that. So it was like, was this dude a one-hit wonder? Is he going to do anything else? What is he painting? And I don't think anyone knew that. Like the super duper secret was like, yo, I grew up right around here. Like when we would play hide and go seek, this is one of the spots I would run past to make sure I was never found. So the connection with this was deeper than deep. And then the fact that, you know, you get this wall that's like a perfect situation. It's a controlled environment. It's inside of a, you know, parking lot. There's no traffic other than what's going up and down the street. And it's smooth from top to bottom, left to right. Like it was like somebody giving you a blank canvas and saying, what would you do on this and how would you go about doing it? Not to mention that Paul Goodnight's studio is directly across the street from the wall. So like I had some shoes to fill, you know, and I wanted to be smart about what way I wanted to say something. And I was like, yeah, I have to do something that has with the breathe life, um, with the breathe life message, because I want to bring this back around the way as well. And I was like, what way could I be smart about it? And I was like, I'm gonna introduce, because you know, a lot of people gave me feedback from the first mural. They was like, yo, it's cool you painting a little boy, why don't you paint a little girl? And I was like, you know what? Let me put both of them together. And I started to create more of a narrative behind that. Now, the little girl was already somebody that I thought of and had in mind. I had a challenge in this particular situation to make her a little older, but to give her a connection with, you know, another character, which I made her brother.
Right.
And then for everybody to know that it's breathe life, I couldn't like put it on there real big, but I wanted to speak to a whole nother audience and introduce mainly like, you know, anybody in the area, especially like, you know, all the little kids that see me on a regular basis, to a whole nother language that is often overlooked, which is ASL. So I learned through like, you know, studying design that people read things top to bottom, left to right. And so I felt like to play with this composition and to have, you know, two children in this position where they look like they're having a blast, you know, the brother got us sitting on the shoulders. What could they be doing in the meanwhile to showcase that they're breathing life? And I was like, oh shoot, they can be doing sign language. So
And
on
this
the
is where
top of
you
the
used Art Vive here too, right? Was it
Art Vive
yeah.
too, because there was just a question of, well, why they got arrows on their hands and what's happening. If you ever looked at how ASL is probably taught or translated. So I used the Art Vive app to actually animate the hands where she's doing the word breathe and he's doing life, you know,
Beautiful.
so that people don't look at it like, you know, oh, they throwing up gang signs. Like, nah, dude, like pull out your phone, pull out the app. So it was just another way to convey the message and bring another level of communication. And if there's anybody that used ASL, I've heard stories in reference to that as well, where a sister of ours, she had a little girl and she was born without her hearing. And so for her to learn how to like communicate, it was a lesson for both her mother
Mm-hmm.
and her. And she didn't want to feel like out of place because she's with kids at school. She looks like everybody, but she has to, you know what I'm saying, communicate a little different. And she wouldn't wear the hearing aids. So Mel told me that when she saw that mural, it made her cry because her daughter seen herself and had the pride to start to like, you know, pick up the signing
Right.
to be able to like, you know, sign, wear the hearing aid and kick it with the kids. So it was just another level of inspiration that I didn't know
Beautiful.
was gonna happen,
Right.
but it was a beautiful moment.
So that's a perfect segue because I have a question for you that goes perfectly with this mural, which is
Hmm.
what muralists have inspired you and continue to do that both locally and beyond?
You said what murals?
What muralists have inspired you?
Oh,
Who, like what other artists?
I mean, all the other artists I paint with, I got Marker 27, huge inspiration.
That's who you did this
Um,
piece with, right?
that's why I did this piece with, yeah, Don Rymix, you know, Paul Goodnight, Dana Chandler. You have oh man, John Biggers, ultimate. He's the ultimate, ultimate muralist. I forget the brother's name that did Africa is the Beginning on the side of the Roxbury Boys and Girls Club. Murals that I pretty much seen growing up, going to and from. So when I started understanding how to see it,
Mm-hmm.
Gary Rickson, there it is. So these murals that I was seeing going to and from, and knowing that these are residents of Boston and brothers that wanted to convey a message, their inspiration is baked and deep and embedded. It's the same with Timmy Allen, who was showing us how to, you know, and challenging us to use a spray can a lot. So doing these murals just is a version of me echoing what I've seen growing up.
The story that goes along with this "No weapons formed against thee shall prosper" is really personal for me. But I'll just share that when Rob was working on the 2-month project, he actually had been scheduled to work on this project in New York. And it's a series of panels that were contributed to by several artists. And Say Adams is up in the top middle corner of the flag, the black flag. He actually was a contemporary of Basquiat's. But Marca 27's on here, Sophia Dawson, and of course, Rob Stull. And then the fist in the middle was yours. And to open the museum after having been closed for so many months with this on the front lawn, for me was a real turning point for both our institution, but also I feel like for the city. The amazing thing is that this morning it was picked up, I don't know if you know this, Rob, and it's going to be permanently installed with Nina Simone at the Ink Block. So it's on its way there right now. Really exciting. I want to make sure, I know we're probably going to run out of time, but I do want to make sure that I just take us to sharing everybody's face and make sure that if there are some other questions that I didn't get to, and I'm sorry, I was trying to sort of multitask, you should feel free. Let's take, do we have a couple of minutes, just maybe like 5 minutes to hear any other questions that are out there? Don't be shy.
A couple of questions from the chat were, how can teachers make student work more visible? And would you be willing to make yourself available to speak with the students directly?
Absolutely. Absolutely. For all the faces I see on here, you know, I'm just a phone call away. Reach out to me, talking to the students and making it a realistic thing. That's what it's about. Because a lot of us that have been painting for a while, we need the youth to step up and have that energy to speak loud. We're getting kind of old. We can't climb ladders and stuff no more like that. But I think the ability to get like a lot of their messages out is just to start in your own school. You know, definitely have that that pride represented in such a way where their voices are heard. And I have absolutely no problem with talking with anybody. Like Makeeba, if anybody can put my information in the chat, reach out to me. I'm not hard to find. I might be doing something crazy, but I have a hard time saying no, not doing it. Let's go. Please reach out.
Thank you, Rob.
There was that question
it.
about colors and how you map that out beforehand and then through a project. So I don't know if you can speak to that.
Yeah, the hardest thing for a long time and coming up with the roots of being a graffiti writer is your limitation or limiting your palette, so that you're not hiding your design or anything behind color. When I made the intention to use red, black, and green in a lot of the murals, I know there was just a lot of different ways of displaying it. And so if you look at all the bigger pieces as of recent, there's a very, I use the same amount of red, black, and green when you would see it in a piece that's just the color blocking and it's pretty obvious. I also take a look at the building and where it exists, and I look in the environment so that it doesn't clash or it's like a sore thumb into it. I just make sure that it's something that is pleasant, that fits in. And you know, we're in a day and age where like spray paint has a variety of colors, and I'm not just limited to just using spray paint either. The exterior paint is also a trick in the bag as well, where like you're saving on spray paint by using the exterior latex, but you also open up the practice of like how oil painters paint when they color block everything and leave things out, and then you use the spray paint to render. I want to say my palette is intentional, where like I know how to order the paint, get it. Some of the times the things we need to order just aren't here. And I've made a choice on the palette, which was the hardest thing to do, you know, using chromatic blacks and things that just look good against skin tones, red, black, and green being an intention and throwing in all the pieces. and just making sure that it's vibrant enough, but complements the area that the murals sit in. Now, when I'm doing personal pieces, I feel the need to take away all that color and just use monochromatic dual tones so that I can beef up on technique, because self-taught. So there's a lot of things where like I might use a transparency paint that is traditionally airbrush paint, and I want to see how it works versus watering down paint and taking away the quality of it. So, you know, you start to hack what the paint does, and you find out what works best for you. But if I had a common theme around my colors, it would be the red, black, and green.
I'm going to ask you to share one last thing, and then Amy, we're going to pass it to you, because I know that this is going to have to be, there's going to have to be a part 2 and a part 3. I'm quite sure you're not going to be able to just do this one discussion, Rob. But do you want to just share a little bit about what's coming next for you? Like what you're excited about? Yeah, what I'm excited about is that the museum has given me studio space to have a practice outside of the house, because I know painting in your basketball shorts is cool, but if I'm gonna take this to a whole nother level, man, the narratives have to continue from the walls to the surfaces. And you know, when this pandemic lightens up, I look forward to just studio visits from like younger people in reference to this residency continuing. So this is gonna be like a smooth transition into 2021, and I'm just looking forward to whatever other big projects that I can't talk about because I'm signing like NDAs and things of that nature. But 2021 is going to be another exciting year, man, where I get to put some paint where it ain't. Rob, thank you. We are grateful for the time that you spent with us. And Amy, do you want to take it away?
Sure, I'll just be really quick. I want to say thank you again for making this possible tonight, the MFA. Thank you, Rob and Makeeba, for being willing to talk with our teachers tonight. Thank you, teachers, for coming out. It's, you know, I know you're zoomed out. Everybody's zoomed out. It's a stressful time of year, so thank you for making this time to come out. BPS Arts cannot thrive without our partners, and it's because of the MFA that we're able to have experiences like this tonight. So thank you for that. I just want to quickly let teachers know that coming up in February, we will be showcasing a district-wide arts challenge related to the Basquiat exhibit going on at the MFA. Students will be challenged to explore Basquiat's work and artists who inspired him, and then respond with pieces related to who has influenced them as students, as artists. So that will be coming out, and students will also have opportunities through the MFA to explore the exhibit on January 27th. So check your weekly Zoom notes, check the Google Classroom and the Arts Flash for details. I want to make it quick because
Emily and Cassie going to join it all? I know my team wanted to make sure that everybody knew about the educator workshops that are coming up, and you just mentioned that one. I also put in the chat a launch party that we're having for Cosign, which is the documentary that we were able to create chronicling Rob Gibbs and Rob Stull's residency here. And so you can check that out. And then I think also we put in the chat a link to there we go. A link to the Mural project, which also has a walking map that Rob Gibbs curated and Rob Stull illustrated. So there's lots of stuff going. There's Emily. Emily, anything you want to say to close?
Hi. Yeah, I just want to thank everyone so much for being here, and thank Rob Gibbs most of all. And thank you also to Makeeba and to Amy and to Sophia and Cassie and everyone else. I am thrilled to see so many people turning out tonight. We would love to see you also on January 13th, as you see in the chat, for a session with Timothy Mangan, professor of music and African and African Diaspora Studies at Boston College. He'll be speaking about music and the Basquiat exhibit. Tomorrow night, for those of you who are able, we are going to be hosting a small focus group related to a new initiative we have called Art Finders, which we'll be putting something in the chat for as well, and also other teacher resources that we have. And as you'll see, we're specifically focusing on how we are creating resources with a lens to inclusion, with a lens to representation and anti-racism. And we are eager to involve some of you actually, and I know some of you were there with us last night. We did our first focus group last night. So we'd love to talk to you more. If you can't make it tomorrow, but want to get more involved with how we're working with teachers, please let us know. And I'll turn it over to my colleague, Cassie, for a final thank you.
Yes, thank you all. And I'm putting in the chat here our distance learning programs. And we do have one coming up on the 27th that's open for all educators everywhere, in addition to the BPS program on the 27th. So we're excited to share that about Basquiat and just check out our distance learning programs in general. And Rob, thanks again so much too. And it's so great to see so many of the teachers from our partner schools coming on, which is great. So glad that you guys are here. So glad that you can share all your information, Rob, with them. So super glad that this all came together. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Sophia, can we leave this open for like another 60 seconds so people can grab things from the chat that they might need? Rob, thank you. This was great.
Thanks for having me, and everybody. I know everyone's zoomed out, so appreciate the time you listening again. I see a lot of friends on here. This is amazing. It's such an amazing time. Just be safe.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.